Welcome. My name is Nathaniel, and this is Impact 2021. This is our conversation, our ongoing conversation where we talk about issues, social justice, issues from a religious standpoint, just issues and topics that you want to discuss. We continuously do this each week to make sure that we bring light to subjects that need to be discussed. As always, to those who've been here before and those who maybe this is your first time, you can type questions into the comment section. You can do your questions and your comments, and please feel free to type whatever you want, and we will continue on with the discussion. And that is also after the fact. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you can put your questions and your comments into the comment section, and the conversation will continue. So let's get into it. Let me tell you a story. And this story involves a gentleman who is 62 years old. His name is Kevin Strickland. And in 1978, he pleaded guilty to a crime that he did not commit. Kevin Strickland is a black man, and he had eyewitnesses, statements that were made against him in this crime. He had prosecutors who had evidence or questionable evidence that they put against him into this crime. And he was, subsequently, he pled guilty, thinking that he would get a lesser sentence. And he was found guilty, and he's been in jail for 40 years, since 1978. So he is now 62 years old. Well, subsequently, after years and years of professing his innocence, there was starting to be a groundswell of people who were interested in his case. And after years and years, there were then the prosecutor who formally prosecuted said, you know what, it looks like this man was innocent, and we wrongly prosecuted him. He had his defense team said that he was not guilty. And they also have petitioned the judges in the courts to allow him to be set free because he was not guilty. Well, there is, in the process, and this is in Missouri, during the process of being let free, you have to get buy-in by the Attorney General. And furthermore, you get buy-in by the governor so that you can be set free, wrongly convicted, and you can be set free going your way. However, the lawmakers that are in Missouri, the Attorney General, and even the governor, have decided that they would not. So the governor has decided that he's not interested in pardoning this gentleman, even though for 40 years he's been in jail, and everyone has agreed that he was not guilty. And the AG has also has a policy, the Attorney General, or has a policy of not really correcting the wrongs. So if someone is convicted by, as the AG says, a jury of their peers, even if it's wrong, they're not really moving on it. And that has been a policy that this office has. And as the governor has said, this is not a priority. And let me reiterate that. The governor has said that this man who is innocent and has been in jail for over 40 years, letting him stay in jail, even though he wasn't a criminal, even though he was abused by the justice system, who coerced and forced him to confess to a crime that he did not commit. It is not a priority. The witness who said that he committed the crime recanted and said that she was forced or coerced into giving false statements, and yet still it is not a priority. Now, why am I telling this story? On the show where we talk about social justice, on the show where we talk about race issues, on the show where we speak about religion, Why is this story important? Well, this story I feel is important because it highlights that cross section between church and life, social justice and church. What more or what less should we be doing than talking about it? But what more should we be doing when it comes to social justice issues? As Christians, if we're looking to do good, if we're looking to do right, one of the things is not to turn a blind eye to someone who is being abused. And abuse can be qualified as sitting in jail for 40 years for a crime that you did not commit. We sit back and we have debated here, and I've sat back and I've talked to people over the course of the time of the running of this show. And one of the things that we've been talking about in the recent is what is the role of the church? What is the responsibility of the church? And why or why not do people think that the church is not that relevant? Well, when we see a situation like this is where I believe that the church is supposed to get involved and start touching. This is where the relevancy of the church comes in. If we cannot fight for those who are being prosecuted, who are being persecuted, if we can't fight for those who are being wronged by the system, if we don't speak up on those issues, then are we doing what we're called to do? The poor, the neglected, the hurt, and the harmed. That is who this man represents. Kevin Strickland. Not because he's a black man, but even though that is a significant issue, he should not be in jail. But who is advocating for him? Well, he has a legal team that's advocating for him. That's great. He has people who are advocating for him, some private organizations that are advocating for him. But then the question is, where is the church? Now, is Kevin Strickland a Christian? I don't know. In my research, it didn't say whether he was or wasn't. Doesn't really matter. But I believe that issues such as this, issues when it comes to righteousness, when it comes to right and wrong, when it comes to someone who we can just sit back and look at, that's just not fair. That is where I think the church has to get involved in everyday life. There's no point in us sitting back, staying in our buildings and not doing the work. And so we need justice for everyone. And so when we talk about our relevancy and younger people are saying, well, the church isn't as relevant anymore. Well, I think issues such as these is what shows our relevancy. It shows that we're not going to sit back and have a person who is supposed to represent our state or a state representative that represents a state in the country. Because this is in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. It has nothing to do with where I'm at. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. So I can sit back and be like, well, that's not my neighborhood. That's not my stuff. They need to handle that. But I think we all need to talk out against this. We all need to talk out against when you have a person who sits back and says, well, my job is to preside as the chief prosecutor of the state. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore right and wrong and just make sure that I do the things that I want to do. Now, people have speculated that it has to do with his campaign. You can't be tough on crime if you're going to let people out, or that the state should never apologize, or that if a mistake was made, that's just a mistake. That was me. And we don't have to rectify that situation. He should have had better counsel or better advice, or he should have never pled guilty, even though he was coerced to do so, like we have heard that many people are. And so when we look about when we look about what's going on around the country and we talk about justice issues, I think one of the things that we have to focus on is individuals whose primary purpose is to fight justice. And that's what the AG is doing. Now, I'm being a little vague and not being as specific in the names of the governor and AG. One, because I want you to look it up. I want you to get involved, and I want us to get involved, and I want this to be a conversation piece that people have. There is no reason that an attorney general should not let someone go who is not guilty. There is no reason that an attorney general and a governor should stand in the way of justice. Your job is not to stand in the way of justice. It's very easy. With the stroke of a pen, this man should go home. As soon as we realized that he was not guilty, he should have already been home. You know, you're like, well, it's 40 years. What's another day? 40 years. He's 62 years old. You don't know how many days he has left. And even if he was, I don't care if he was 10 years old, you shouldn't spend a day in jail if you're not guilty. And so as churches, I think our responsibility is to speak out to issues such as these. If you don't want to speak to politics and this and that, and you think that talking about Republicans and Democrats and conservative and liberals is just too much, I think that we all should be able to agree that the power of the church is to talk to injustice. And this injustice, the injustice of having someone in jail, is an injustice I think that we can all get involved in, we can all get on board with. And so, when we talk about the role of the church, I say that this is where we get involved. That we don't let, when it's a clear-cut case of a person who is standing in the way of justice, that we have to speak out against it. From our Christian values, from our moral values, that we sit back and we speak out against it. And we take it to where it needs to go. If you are going to be someone who is okay with people who are innocent being in jail, then you don't need to be in a position of power. And we need to do everything that we can, legally can, to get you out of that position of power. We need to vote you out. We need to speak against you in church, speak against you after church, speak against you in our regular conversation. There is no reason. The kind of pressure and power that we have, we need to continue to push that along. You know, I'm adamant about this, angry about this in a sense, because this isn't the only situation. Situation after situation where prosecutors have sat back and they've looked at the system and some of the injustices in the system. And for many of them, they fall on people of color. So the racism that's in the system, where they're trying to prosecute people who are innocent. We've seen this so many times. Central Park 5. We've seen this so many times. And just like we don't get, just like, let's be more plain, just like the former president sat back and did not apologize after calling for the Central Park 5 to be hung, we have people who won't sit back and admit that a mistake was made. And this is not even your mistake. You try to take up for somebody else's mistake. You try to protect a system more than you want to protect lives. And so if we believe that individual lives are important, if we believe that Jesus Christ is real, if we believe that we should be neighbors to one another, then I think it's our responsibility to seek out and be a neighbor to someone who is being unjustly treated. And so my call here is that all of us get involved. All of us make our voices heard, whether it be in church and out of church, to let people know that injustice and that these people who are innocent should be immediately released from jail. Now, it's a little different type of conversation. Just kind of putting out there what we're having. But also, I wanted to let you know today that did a little soul searching when it came to Impact 2021. And one of the things that we're going to be doing a little different now is that had to evaluate what our impact is. And so not only now are we going to have the program, but we're also going to take a look, and we're developing a website to go a little further, to take a little step further, to offer out some resources if you want to get involved in different situations, to offer out a continuing conversation where it's not just on Facebook, but also on the site, and to offer also some written material. So sometimes you may not be able to have a moment to listen to the conversation, but you may be able to read a little bit of the material that's put out there. Just, I don't know what we're actually going to call it, but just some written material about some topics, and so that further discussion can go along. And especially just the acknowledgement of some activities and some things that are going on and how to get involved. I think that's one of the meat and the most important part. So yes, we want to talk and we want to continue to have discussion, but we also got to put some action behind our discussion. And so going forward, that's what we'll have. And so in the next couple of programs, we'll start to put out the information as far as what the website's going to be. Hopefully it's Impact 2021. To let people know this is how you get involved. And this is how we not only talk about it and we share our story, but this is how we also physically get involved so that we can have some action going forward. So this is a little different program. I wanted to make sure I got that story out there. I think that it's extremely important that we talk about these things. No one should be in jail that is not guilty. And especially when we all know, when the prosecutor will sit back and say this was a mistake, when witnesses recant and tell you why they recanted because they were pressured, we can't have these situations. And as Christians, we can't sit back and turn a blind eye. And so this is what people are looking for. This is what the young people are looking for. Saying that, I mean, the church don't do nothing. All we do is complain. All we do is tell you what not to do. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. We always complain. Oh, gay people this, reproductive rights this, and we're always whining and complaining about something that somebody shouldn't do. It's about time that we go out here and we start being forceful in talking about what we should do and what we can do. Stop whining and start working. And so that's what we're going to do here at Impact 2021. We're going to put in that work. We're going to do our website and get you the information that you need to be informed, to be able to do whatever work that you want to do as well. Short night. Good comment here, I see. I want to get on that before we leave. We love God by loving each other, and that's right there with what we're trying to do. And I think that we all need to do that. And so please, Kevin Strickland, share his story and share other stories of individuals, and make sure that when you see somebody who's standing in the way of injustice, that we speak against it, directly and against it. All right, this is Short Night. My name is Nathaniel. This is Impact 2021. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again next week. We're going to continue the conversation. And again, on Facebook or on YouTube, please put in your comment and we'll continue the conversation. Thank you. Join us again.